As hopefully has been made clear, the changes of the Industrial Revolution were profound. And if we began by looking at how the Industrial Revolution kicked off in England, it's important to return to them to see how they were trying to cope with all of the social changes that we've discussed. How is society adapting or coping with all of these changes, profound and otherwise, to economics, social distinctions, class development, things like that. And so I want to turn to looking at the specific British case to help take you through that. What you should see in this in terms of England is the development of the modern welfare state, or the development of the early welfare state. The causes of this are functionally the massive pressure caused by the migration of people to the cities, massive urbanization, and thus by extension the large growth of a new group of poor, the proletariat. Now that in and of itself wouldn't be a problem insofar as the old social structures that had been in place to try and adapt or cope with social problems found themselves overwhelmed. Feudalism was gone, the guilds were destroyed, the churches and charities were overwhelmed by the number of people who needed help. And in some cases, social structures couldn't cope with problems such as rampant disease and sanitation. And so as the factory started to replace the home, many people started to say that the state had to replace the family as a means to protect the people from the factory. And so I want to turn to how this plays out in the case of Great Britain. So how does the state get involved? How does Britain see this change? Well, one of the key elements to allowing the welfare state to kick off and British reform efforts to kick off is actually a political act, the Reform Bill of 1832. What had happened with the development of factories was that people flocked to them, and because of the steam engine, factories could be built anywhere. Oftentimes cities would grow up around factories. But the problem was many of these massive new cities did not have representation in Parliament. The old rural areas that were largely depopulated, called rotten boroughs, did have parliamentary representation, but lots of the areas that had grown up in the Industrial Revolution had not. And so the 1832 Reform Bill was an attempt to change that. Not only did it create 130 new seats in Parliament, it expanded the voting population by 60%. And this was critical in that many of these people who gained the right to vote were the middle class who championed using the state to alleviate social problems of the poor. And one of the first actions they undertook was the Factory Act of 1833. It limited the working hours of the young in terms of prohibiting them from working too much or as large as as many hours as the state deemed necessary. And more than that, the Factory Act of 1833 set a precedent whereby the state could get involved and regulate such things. Later acts regulated the total amount of work that women could do. A later act in 1874 made it illegal to require men even to work more than 10 hours a day. And so the Factory Act of 1832 really set in place the precedent that the state could get involved to regulate economic activity in a way it never had before. And it wasn't just in the workplace that the state starts to get involved. In the 1848 Public Health Act, the Parliament passed an act trying to promote local sanitation efforts, cities to improve their sanitation and water quality. And what you see is this is the state getting involved in regulating the environment to try and help alleviate some of the problems they're recognizing in cities. So what you should see in all of this is the growth of the state to try and handle the increasing problems of the Industrial Revolution, to manage, if you will, the changes in society. And so something that, again, the Industrial Revolution is transformative, something that we see quite normal, the role of the state in regulating workplace hours, workplace conditions, environmental regulations. All of these find their origins in this case, Britain, trying to find ways to handle or cope with all of the numerous changes wrought by the Industrial Revolution.